Hello, Miika. Thank you for joining for this special session as part of the COMEUP 2020. COMEUP is a leading tech and startup conference in South Korea, and I'm the executive director of COMEUP and also CEO of beSUCCESS. I've been operating startup conference for around 10 years, and personally, I'm very honored to have an opportunity to talk with you. Slush is a leading tech startup conference in Europe and in the world, and I personally love joining Slush with its great energy. There was snow and there was a beautiful street scene filled with the entrepreneurs and investors. First, Miika, please tell me about your personal background and your current role at Slush.
Sure. First of all, a huge thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to join. Currently, if I go backwards, I'm the current CEO of Slush. I started in January, and before that, I worked as a COO and also did partnerships. So as a COO, I was responsible for revenue and a bunch of different teams. So product, marketing, sales, and other aspects as well. And before that, in 2018, I was doing partnerships at Slush. Before that, my Slush history is something that's actually pretty unique to Slush. So many people start as volunteers. So I joined to Slush 2014. I was a volunteer at the event. I did the same thing in 2015. And then for 16 and 17, I asked the team, is there something to help? Do you need help? And I joined the team I was actually hosting some stages and discussing with speakers, but only 2018 I joined the full-time team. Before that, I've done some work in different companies. I've studied finance and data analytics, but yeah, currently as the CEO, and we'll be here also for the next year.
Great to hear that, man. So Miika, so you've been in Slush with Slush from 2014, right?
Right.
How did the Slush conference evolve over the years? Tell me about how Slush started and how Slush is operating right now.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty interesting story. So it started in 2008 already. And for the first 3 years, it was a small gathering in Finland. Around 150 to 200 serial entrepreneurs just wanted to meet each other because there wasn't really a place for that. But then in 2011, there was a moment when these people who were entrepreneurs were too busy to continue with Slush. And there was a guy, for example, called Peter Westerbacka, who used to be the chief marketing officer of Rovio, the Angry Birds company. And Peter asked from a person called Miki Kuusi, okay, we have this event here, but I don't have any more time to do it. Do you want to do it? And Miki started to build Slush 2011 with the kind of like how it actually evolved later. So not-for-profit organization as a baseline, mostly run by people who are between 20 to 30 years old, so mostly students. And 2011 was like the first year when we actually started to scale the event. I think it was around 3,000 people back then. Then we started to scale it every year. 2014 was an interesting year because we moved to different venue and we scaled the event for the first time to the 10,000 people. And 2015 we started to look for international expansion as well. So we initiated communities and events in Japan, then also in China, and later in Singapore. And eventually we also scaled the event in Helsinki. And last year we had 25,000 attendees in Helsinki, over 3,000 startups, over 2,000 investors. And how we operate this is that the team is run by people like me. I'm 27. I'm actually pretty old compared to other people here working, but that's the point. So we want to hire people who want to become entrepreneurs in the future, and who are also we want to find those people who are on the path to kind of their potential will explode. So when they join Slush, they will get a lot of responsibility and can do different things. So they will actually their potential will explode. So that's kind of how we operate.
Very good, very insightful. And Miika, what's the philosophy behind Slush? And how do you see startup conference like Slush and COMEUP contributing to the global tech ecosystem?
Yes. So we believe at Slush that entrepreneurship is one of the most efficient ways to change the world. There are many ways to do it, but we believe entrepreneurship is, as a tool, as a mechanism, one of the most fastest ones to actually change the world to something we want to see. And therefore, our mission since the beginning has been to create and help founders to do exactly that. So everything basically what we do is based on that. So we always ask ourselves like if we're planning to start a new product or maybe start a side project, is this actually helping entrepreneurs, or is this actually building new ones? So that's like the core underlying idea for everything what we do. And how these events like Slush or COMEUP or various other events, like how they actually benefit the tech ecosystem, it's the fact that we want to gather people who are looking for each other. And we want to make it super easy because startups need access to various different things. They need access to capital, they need access to talent, they need access to advice. And these are exactly the things that we want to ensure they will find. So, for example, at the event, we want to ensure that there is a critical proportion of investors looking to find interesting people, interesting companies, but also other investors. And then the stage program or the written content or the podcast or various other products that we do, that kind of like tries to tackle the advice part. So we want to help founders by giving super practical advice from those people who have done it for those who have not yet done it. And then finally, like talent. So we had like over 2,000 volunteers, for example, last year at the event. And those people are the ones who want to join startups to work. So this is actually a great talent funnel also for companies looking to hire great people.
Great, 20,000 volunteers, that's amazing. And especially this year, the conference landscape globally has changed massively. How is Slush dealing with this right now?
It's a great question. So we were one of the first ones to actually cancel the event. So it happened already late March. Obviously, there were smaller events who canceled, but I think at this scale, what we do and operate, we were among the first ones, and we pretty quickly understood that this year is not for especially this sized events, like the physical events. I mean, like we, like our most of our visitors are international. They come all around the world, and packing 25,000 people to one place is simply not possible this year. So we adapted to that in a way, because on the other hand, one option was to just wait and see and hope the COVID-19 will go away. And the other option was to either adapt and build things. And we chose this because kind of like finding solutions is in the DNA of Slush. And startups need at the moment more help than ever. They need capital, they need help. Some of the startups are in the tough spot. So we started building new products that are kind of like digital first. Not tied to physical event, but digital first. And that's what we had done this year.
So can you please share more about the kind of the product solution that you have made? There's like several things which I can see from the website. So can you please describe a bit of your detailed solutions?
Absolutely. So the flagship product that we built after the event in really fast timeline, we started to build it in mid-May. And what we noticed then, because our option was to just replace Slush offline event with online event. And that was a great option. We could have done it, but we wanted to try a bit different thing. And that was, we got really interested about like an idea, how we can create a community, online community, which can both help each other and we can help them. So it's not just like everything is dependent on Slush. So like, can we introduce this person to these people, but can the community also itself help each other? So we build Node by Slush, which is a curated community for investors and founders. And for those, we do basically two things. If they get an access to the closed community, they have ability to discuss with, if you're, let's say, founder, you can discuss with investors and other founders. We create interesting content for them that can help to grow their businesses. But we also do hundreds of smaller sessions over the course of the fall. So we're not doing like 2-day events, but we are actually doing these 45 minutes discussions like now. And just to give you an example, let's say there is a product marketing manager or product manager from San Francisco who is really well known and knows exactly how to build great products. And then we pick, let's say, 20 to 30 people from the community, and they help. And the person kind of like coaches and mentors these people, and they can ask questions, which is not usually typical and possible at big events. So that's, for example, what we do.
So what about the plan for the kind of the big event that you used to hold last year? So what's the kind of a solution for that? Is kind of can you please describe for that site?
Of course. So for this year, it's not going to happen like as a physical event, because it's simply not possible. We are really looking forward for the next year. We're following the situation really closely and want to be careful with the planning. So because it's possible that the virus situation will be here for a long time. We kind of like how our planning is for the next year's event is we are going forward with that, but we are most likely changing the concept a bit. But we also want to think about it in a way that we want to build things that they are digital first, because there are many people who are thinking, and it's a typical trap, to kind of like hope that we will be back to normal next year. There will be no back to normal. There will be never a year like 2019. So if you're like a startup or you're event organizer, kind of like it's really important to think like a bit more under the surface, like what are the implications of this year, how they are affecting the people psychologically, and has the need to meet people face to face changed, and if yes, how does that affect your event? Because now, for example, investors are doing investment through Zoom and other places. But we are going forward with the bigger event, with the physical event, but we are adapting to the current situation in a way that we want to also have a hybrid component for it.
Thank you very much for your honest feedback and answers. And next question is that, how do you see the future of Startup Conference, and what values will the Slush team will focus on to deliver to attendees?
Yes, so that's a really interesting question. Many people are thinking it right now, because what we have is that it's really hard to make great online events. And then again, what's the option if you cannot do physical events? So I think the future of there will be always events, and there will be always the need to meet people face to face. Although I really like to discuss with people through Zoom and other solutions, it's not the same. So there is this really underlying need for people to meet each other. But if you're an event organizer, I feel that you really have to nail down the value proposition that you're giving for people. Because if you're like this really generalist conference that kind of like tries to serve a bit everything, a bit for everyone, then you are in a tough spot, because then it's really hard to understand like why you exist and for whom. So we at Slush try to like really keep in mind that we are here and we exist for startups and investors, mainly for startups. And startups need investors, so also investors. And then we kind of like build everything from program, from how it's actually marketed, how it actually works, how actually the physical representation of Slush works. Everything is geared towards that. So that's kind of like also important to keep in mind. But in general, I think we're having a shift to hybrid events in a way that it's not, if you want to be like a big international event, it's not anymore enough that you do things really well physically. You have to do also them really well online.
I think building strong alliances between global conference organizers is very important to bring worldwide startup community closer and build linkage each other. Please let me know your thought on building alliances among conference organizers.
I think it's important, especially if your mission is the same. So if the mission is to help founders and help startups and like create new innovation to help the humankind, I think then building alliances is unbelievably important because we're trying to solve the same thing. It's not like I win, you lose, or you win, I lose situation. Because in the best way, we can learn from each other. We can kind of like, in this case, for example, with your conference, which is amazing, we can like share ideas. We can even transfer some people who are joining your event and our event, and then like see like or mutually benefit. So in a way, I think it's important, but I think it's you have to have a common mission in order
Very
to
good.
actually, if you don't have a common mission, then it's difficult. Then it might feel a waste of time. But I feel it's important.
How is the Finnish government supporting the startup community and also Slush? Can you share the desirable role of the government in building a sustainable global startup conference?
That's a great question. So I think the first point is that the government or similar players should ensure that the Slush or whatever organization is doing work with the startups they have the required resources to do it, but not to interfere too much how they do it. So actually giving the resources and giving the assets to do and trust that they can do what's best for both the government and both for the city and both for the whole startup ecosystem. And that's really important because what I see often, not let's say, I'm not talking about Finland, but what I see is that if you, let's say, support financially, for example, you want to really interfere how you do things and you have really heavy like reporting mechanisms that you have to report about how you use this funding, because you need only trust. You have to trust these players that they will do the best they can to help also the government and the city and also what's best for them. And for example, how we work at Slush with local government and local cities is that, for example, Helsinki is both helping us financially, but also in various other forms. Because it's really beneficial also for Helsinki to get the global investors and global players to here. But also the Finnish government is supporting both venture capital investors and startups in various different forms because they have understood that, I think the last 10 years, that startups are actually the place where the most of the new jobs are born, for example, and the new innovation is born. So it's absolutely crucial, but there is still a lot to do. We're not ready in Finland, we're not ready in Europe, we're not ready in globally. But what I can say, or the only thing that I want to kind of like say is that you have to give the resources, but then also space for different organizations to execute what they feel the best.
Very good. Thank you very much for your great insight. What are the Slush's plans for 2021?
Yes. So obviously that's a difficult question because right now situation is it's very foggy. You don't really see what's happening even the next month. So what we're doing kind of like is these different scenarios. Like if this thing happens, we're gonna do this, and if this thing happens, we're gonna like follow the plan B, and then do the C. we're planning for the offline event if it's possible, in a different concept, maybe a bit smaller, and adding really strong hybrid online component to it to reach the scale. But also we're looking ways to not just only help founders for the 2 or 3 days that we're going to have the event, but actually all the way for the whole year. So most likely continuing what we have built this year, as we had to because we canceled the event, and building the node concept forward. So having this created community for the whole year and then ending with the big bang with our event, and that's it.
What are your thoughts on South Korea's startup and tech ecosystem?
Yes, so I think it's absolutely fantastic what there is happening there, especially from different fields. Like one that first comes to my mind is robotics. I see absolutely amazing companies from robotics coming from there, and I think at least for the past 5 years, there has been an incredible amount of South Korean companies in Slush present, meeting different people. So you really have really vibrant ecosystem there, and a lot of potential. And it's been a pleasure to work with many South Korean organizations over the past like 10 years already now. And now just like focus on the things that you are really good at, and just keep on going, because I think there is a lot of potential coming up.
Please describe the Finnish startup ecosystem in general.
Yes, absolutely. So actually, I have to give a small story here, because over 10 years ago, or roughly 10 years ago, there was pretty much no Kia in Finland, and then a couple of pulp companies like creating different products from the forest that we have quite a lot here, or from wood basically. But then in less than 10 years, we have built pretty interesting startup ecosystem here in Helsinki, and also in the whole Finland, because if we think about venture capital, amount of venture capital invested according to or compared to the GDP, we are like one of the leaders in Europe right now in the amount of actually invested venture capital. Then when it comes to the games and games industry, I think Finland is like top 3 places in the whole world, with the companies like Supercell, Rovio, Small Giant Games, and others. Then we have pretty strong 2 universities, like pretty tightly linked to the startup ecosystem. So one is Aalto University and one is Helsinki University, which are building these research-based companies for this ecosystem. We are also pretty good covered in early stage financing for companies, but still what we have to work on that we're not that good at is the late stage financing. So we kind of like have to find more late stage investors, but also late stage companies. And the reason why late stage companies are important is that once you build your company to scale, you reach that maybe 1 billion valuation at some point. What happens is that once kind of like these founders and the people who have been involved stop there and maybe jump to the new roles or new projects, they have the experience, but also capital to continue, which they will later either start new companies, and most likely very successful companies, or they invest to the local ecosystem. And this has happened for example, in Europe many times. It happened with Skype, which kind of like created multiple different companies. It happened with Spotify. It happened with, or kind of like it's happening right now with Supercell, which is like now investing to new companies. So I'm really positive of the Finnish startup ecosystem right now, but there is still a lot to do. We want to be like the #1 location in Europe. So you're not like, when you're thinking like, should I go to Berlin or to London or to Stockholm, you actually go to Helsinki.
Please describe the linkage between universities and Slush organizations.
Sure. So Aalto University was integral part of the birth of Slush. So we actually Slush was born out of a student organization called Aalto Entrepreneurship Society, which was kind of like this student society for those in Aalto University who were interested in entrepreneurship. And they held different events and they gathered interesting people who wanted to learn more about entrepreneurship. And University of Aalto supported the actions, and they actually provided them a free space. They supported them a bit financially, and they also provided connections. And when the idea of Slush kind of like, or once it was given from a guy, what I mentioned earlier, Peter Westerbacka to Miika Huttunen, it first was under kind of like the umbrella of Aalto University. It was at their premises, and it was like kind of like it. Aalto University helped a lot in the beginning. Later, kind of like Slush emerged out of Aalto University, but they are still our partner, and we're doing a lot of things with them. For example, this year, we are highlighting different research-based companies from Aalto University at Slush and introducing them for investors. So I think it has been really important part of Slush story, and I think as a whole, what creates a great startup ecosystem or in general is that it's not about like having the critical amount of startups and investors and capital in general, but also cutting edge research. And once you have these three things, you have companies, you have cutting edge research, and you have capital, then there is a lot of potential to be born.
And next question is that there must be so many cases, but Miika, can you please let us know about the very interesting success case from Slush conference?
Yeah, sure. I think there are many. I could maybe start with one about Memphis Meats, which kind of like creates this artificial meat. It's actually a US-based company. And what happened is that we invited their founder, Uma Valeti, to speak at Slush in Helsinki. And this was already a couple of years ago. And Uma flew all the way from San Francisco to Helsinki to speak at Slush. And what actually happened was that they met their investors at Slush who were also US based. So they had to come all the way from United States to Helsinki to meet each other. And what eventually happened was that Memphis Meat got funding from these investors, and people who also joined the funding round were Sir Richard Branson, Bill Gates, and also Elon Musk's brother, Kimball Musk. And they all invested to the Memphis Meats. And this happened because of actually they met at Slush. So that's one great example. Then there are a lot of smaller different other things. Like last year, US-based investors invested to a Finnish company called Ivan, one of the most prestigious investors in the Valley, called International Venture Partners, IVP. Then maybe if I take a different angle for this is also the companies who are born out of Slush alumni. So if we talk about for example, our former CEOs, Miika Huttunen, he founded a company called Volt, which is getting pretty massive. They employ over 1,000 people. They have raised from really prominent investors. And funnily enough, also two former CEOs, Riku Mäkelä and Marianne Vikkula, are also working at Volt. So Riku is COO and Marianne is the VP of expansion. So that's also one success story, because you kind of like learn to do different things at Slush. You learned how to build companies, which you later applied to your own thing, and then Volt was born, and now they're like operating, I think, in 26 markets. They just opened in Japan, so that's also one success story.
Korea-Finland Startup Summit 2019 held in Helsinki on June 11. The summit opened up with the Innovative Growth Forum with keynote addressed by president of both countries for full cooperations to support startup and foster innovative growth. Can you let us know the further activities to support each other countries after the summit?
Yes, absolutely. So I think it was really unique meeting between both presidents, and it was great to see also like a massive delegation coming from South Korea also to the Slush 2019. I think although there are not like really practical next steps that was born out of that meeting, but I think the first one is especially like we are eagerly discussing with many people from South Korea also like what we can do as Slush to the South Korean region. Like, can we maybe help that different regions there, and maybe even start building like a local community of Slush in South Korea. So that's definitely one thing. And it has been also like great to see once we have built the as we have built the Node by Slush, to see a massive interest also from South Korea. So I think it's kind of like opened also the dialogue even more than it has been in the past between two countries. And as said, at Slush, we're really eager to find out like this grassroots community from South Korea to also start building our next step in expansion to there.
Miika, can you please share your passion or words toward attendees from COMEUP 2020?
Absolutely. So I want to just say that we truly enjoy working with Korean startups and Korean people, and you are most invited to join us next year at Slush. And if you ever have you might need a help, or you want to just discuss with us, don't hesitate to contact us. We're happy to discuss and help you forward. Our mission is to create and help founders. So whenever you might feel that Slush could help you, just let us know.
Okay, so Miika, thank you so much for your time. And then as we talked before, like building a strong alliance between the conference organizers with the same goal would be very important kind of factors for next year to build a more sustainable community around the world. So Miika, thank you very much for joining us today, and very looking forward to meeting in person in the very near future.
Thank you so much for inviting. It's a pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye.